Hi everyone and welcome along. Today we're going to do a really cool card in the design of a greenhouse. So we're going to paint gorgeous plants and watercolour designs, and then we're going to do something very clever with an extra layer of watercolour paper over the top. So you're going to need some cutting materials, but I'll talk you through all of that in the tutorial. So grab your paints and let's get started. Right, so first off we need a piece of watercolour paper that is 10 inches by 7 inches and then scored at the 5-inch point so that you've got yourself a 5 by 7 inch card. And then what I've done here is I've drawn a triangle that's 2 inches down the card, into the middle at the top and back down again, which gives us the shape of our greenhouse. And I am going to first create a little bit of a pale wash of a sort of glassy, greenhousey feel. So I've got my greens and turquoises and a bit of Paynes Grey just woken up in the palette. A bit of green gold as well, and very sort of dilute. I'm just going to use a nice large brush. I've got my Pro Art size 12 here, the connoisseur brush, and I just want to sort of blob some colour in, like I say, keeping it really nice and light and loose. And you can see I'm really sort of splodging it on. It's to give that feeling of the sort of the glass of the greenhouse, the colours inside, but really nice and light and dilute, so that when we come to paint our plants and details in here, that they're not going to struggle to show up over the wash. We're going to let that dry 100% and then we can start doing some plants. Now that the wash has dried entirely, it's time to start filling our greenhouse with plants. Now, I don't know about you, but we sort of fill our greenhouse with vegetables, but they don't all, like, we can do some of those, but I think we also want to have some nice flowers and maybe some hanging pots in here. It's all about making it look really nice and inviting and jolly. So what I'm going to do is just draw in some very simple plants and pots, and maybe even might have a little table in there just to get a bit more height. And you can see I'm drawing these really simply and kind of wonkily, but really sort of go to town. I'm going to put a watering can in here as well. But the very style that I'm doing is all about being nice and simple and loose. And quite sort of naively drawn. There's a bit of a wobble there with everything. And then just get my plants sort of worked out inside. So we'll have something nice and tall down here. I think we'll have a tomato plant. Goes right up to the top. Some nice flowers, and of course these don't have to be real by any stretch. But yeah, so just keep on sort of enjoying drawing in things, and then we'll get painting. I'm going to begin by painting in lots and lots of leaves of all different types. So a nice sort of simple palm. So I'm using my size 4 brush just with Sap Green, doing some nice smooth strokes. If you want, you could always add in a few more. But but the whole aim with this is we're going to fill it, make it feel really wonderfully full of plants, just simply drawn. So play around with the greens in your palette. You might have things that are like ready-made, like I've got green gold here, I've got Sap Green, Hooker's Green, or green is a wonderful colour to mix from other things, the blues and yellows in your palette, and also the turquoises, adding into some of your greens to make some really interesting sort of vibrant tones. And the great thing with a size 4 brush is you can achieve all sorts of leaf shapes with a single brush stroke quite often. So play around and have some fun. And we're going to fill this with the greenery first. So I've had a great time filling those in. You'll notice I've painted in 1 or 2 pots, and I decided to do those before I layered up the plants over the top. And the rest of my plants only sort of come down over a little bit, so I made the choice to leave the pots unpainted there. But I'm going to do terracotta pots. So I've got yellow ochre, cadmium orange, cadmium red, and size 2 brush, and can have some fun painting in the pots again in this slightly sort of naive style. Using the orange and red to accentuate the roundness there whilst it's still wet. So that is the next stage. And paint your pots whatever colour you like, but I'm going for a sort of slightly uniform colour. So now I'm going to just start colouring in the rest of the items we've got here. So I've got a table, I've got some burnt sienna and some moon glow, and using a size 0 brush I'm sort of painting in some wobbly lines to get that nice sort of rustic table. And the nice thing is, what I find is you sort of start off by drawing in the key things, and then as you sort of get into this more, you might start to add extra little plants, little things. I think it might be nice sort of adding a few little extra bits coming down the sides, a few extra little utensils and tools knocking around. So I'm going to use some Paynes Grey to paint in the watering can. You probably should be using a larger brush than this, but hey ho. Just allowing for a little bit of shine on that. Gosh, it's raining. It's raining so heavily outside. Feels very strange to be painting spring-like things. Lovely. It's now time for some fun veg and flowers and plants. So I'm going to begin by creating a tomato plant. And I'm using my size 0 brush and Cadmium Red, but we'll do tomatoes of different colours too, different stages of growth. I'm doing like vine tomatoes. There is no I'm claiming no sort of scientific accuracy here for my plants, but what's lovely is you just get this lovely colour with that little bit of shine with the unpainted space. So yeah, just fill up your area, and the great thing is once you've done this, we can then add in extra branches and vines to connect this all up together. Paint it in as many tomatoes as you like. I'm going to get a slightly sort of stronger green, mixing up some Sap Green into the green gold, and a nice little 4/10 brush, and just connect up some of these and get a little bit more interest on your green vine. For my other plant, I'm going to do some aubergines, because we grew aubergines a few years ago in our greenhouse and they looked great. So I've got some Imperial Purple and some Moon Glow. I'll go a little bit brighter, and I'll sort of focus on Imperial Purple more than the Moon Glow, but I'm going to paint in these sort of teardrop shapes. I can't really, oh, pop one in there. And that little bit of unpainted space really helps give it a bit of shine. And some aubergine, eggplants, if you're wondering, what's an aubergine? I mean an eggplant. If you are, I think that's, is it just America, or is it more places call them eggplants? Do let me know. And also, are they an eggplant because they look like an egg? I was calling them a teardrop shape, but maybe I should say an egg. And the other lovely thing is maybe we could pop in a few of the flowers that grow on the vine as well when the plants are starting to come into bloom. You get these lovely purple flowers as well. So I've just added an extra little twirly vine up the top there, and now I am putting a good little blob of colour on top of the aubergine there, the sepal, and you might want to add a few more leaves, a few more stems, just building it up. Our greenhouse is filling up really nicely, and the last thing I want to just add in is a few bright bits of colour with some flowers. So I've got some opera rose here, and you'll notice I left these plants sort of unfinished, so we'll just scribble in a flower there, and then if I get a bit of opera rose and mix in a little yellow ochre, we get a slightly more blushy pink, and I'm just going to dab that in on the vine. It's the nice thing is you can create a flower just from putting in a few dabs and blobs. And what we're going to do is we're just going to sort of play around with whatever detail you'd like to put in. You might want to put a few lines on the pots, on the leaves themselves. It's very much up to you really. I love a bit of detail, but I also like keeping things nice and simple. I've got to sort of paint in a few little hanging basket things, and also some orange in the aubergine flower centres as well. That's another nice little pop of colour. But yeah, just enjoy putting in some last few bits of detail. It might be as simple as painting some lines up the leaves. But you'll see the whole style of this piece is to be fairly naively drawn and very playful and fun. So don't get too hung up on loads and loads of detail, but just enjoy doing some finishing touches. While that dries, I have cut out a piece of watercolour paper that matches that shape. We're going to be cutting that out as well on the card later. But for now, what we're going to do is we're going to draw a greenhouse frame and cut it out, and we're going to stick it on top of that. So what I've done is I've got a set square which is going to help me, and I am going to draw in my greenhouse frame. So I'm starting with, I'd like a door in the middle, so I've got vertical lines, and the great thing about this is we can draw as heavily as we like, and we can just turn it over. We don't need necessarily to rub out the pencil, so you can sort of do your own design if you want, but essentially what's going to happen is once we've drawn our grid lines, let me see, so I've got, maybe I'll do one about there and one about there. This is the beauty of the set square. Yeah, once we've drawn our grid lines, we will be just creating lines sort of either side of those to create the greenhouse frame. I'm not explaining it very well, but you'll get it when I start to do it. And I think, I'm trying to think how these go. I'll put in some vertical lines. Maybe we'll have a one at the top like that. Okay, so this is the door. So we're going to cut all of that out, and then the rest of it, what I'm going to do is we're going to have these lines drawn like this, you see. So then we get our frame that we're going to cut out. Now in terms of the cutting, you might want to do it with some little scissors or a scalpel and a cutting mat, but if you're under 18 and you haven't used one of, or even if you're over 18 and you haven't used one of those before, please do seek help. Don't do it on your own because the blades are very sharp. There we go. And if you want, you can pop a line in along the bottom to sort of keep it all together. But that is going to be my greenhouse frame that I cut out. Okay, so I've cut all the bits out, and I just carefully take them all out. And I've turned it over so there's no pencil anywhere. Woohoo! Oh, I cut into one bit. I tell you what, that took me a bit longer than I thought it would, but Ant's bought a Cricut machine, which I will be definitely learning how to use, so I can do this using that. Anyway, here we go. And then what we're going to do is we're going to place it, oh, look at that, over the top, but not before we've cut this out. So get a metal ruler. I'm going to stand up to do this. Metal ruler, follow along with a scalpel. I was always taught to stand up to do scalpeling. And there you go, one side off, and off comes the other side. So I've turned the card over to glue, and I've just got some all-purpose PVA glue, this kind of craft glue, and I'm just going to put a little dab, not too much, because you don't want it to sort of buckle up or splurt out. And then very carefully, whoops, oh my goodness, come on, there we go. Turn it over and just place it on. And I'm just going to hold it down on top. You could put a book on it, but there we have a rather beautiful, if I may say so myself, card, perfect for a keen gardener in your life or someone just who wants to celebrate spring. So thank you so much for watching. You've got plenty you can write inside. Do share your paintings and your projects with me on Instagram. Tag us at De Winton Paper Co. And of course, like, comment and subscribe. It makes all the difference to the channel. And of course, by subscribing, you'll never miss another video. And who'd want to miss stuff like this? So thanks so much. I'll see you again next time. Bye.